Have you ever heard of the old penny trick where if you take a penny and you put it in the tread of your tires, if you can see the top of Lincoln's head, that means it's time to replace your tires? Well, that trick really doesn't work for boat trailers or trailer tires in general. In today's video, I'm going to share with you how to determine when it's time to replace your trailer tires and what can happen if you don't, based on a recent experience that I had in trailering my boat. I'll also share with you what to look for when shopping for trailer tires and what you can do to help prolong the life of them. But first, let me take you back to what happened to me on a recent trip. So the tires on your trailer are different than that on your car or truck. They don't wear down necessarily by wear, losing treads, but by age. And you could tell the age of your tire by looking along the sidewall, and it'll have a code there that'll indicate the year and month and year of manufacture. And I think trailer tires are good for roughly 6 years or so. So my trailer was pretty old, and I hardly ever use it because I keep my boat on a lift, but I was trying to take it in for some routine maintenance, and the dealer's only about 15, 20 miles away. My tires visually looked good, but I knew they were old. Well, evidently not good enough. So had a blowout en route, and now had to replace that. So let this be a cautionary tale again. If you're, make sure before you trailer your boat anywhere, check the age of your trailer tires, and if it's say over 6 years old, you'll want to replace those even if they look good, because my tires look like they're in very good condition. I actually keep my trailer inside my garage, but even that wasn't still good enough. So just again, just something to be mindful of before you haul your boat anywhere.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about trailer tires. And the first thing you should know is that tires designed for trailers are different than the tires designed for a passenger vehicle or trucks. They are made of a different rubber compound that is optimized for high load capacity and stability and to resist swaying. Or at least that's the theory. And the sidewalls might be thicker too in case you rub up against a curb, whereas passenger tires may be optimized for things like traction, comfort, to minimize noise, those kinds of things. So again, the tires are designed a bit differently. Now, how do you know if a tire is a trailer tire or one for a passenger vehicle? Well, that's pretty simple. You just look at the sidewall of the tire, and if it's a trailer tire, it'll have ST embossed on the sidewall. ST stands for special trailer. The next thing you should know about trailer tires is that you should replace them every 5 to 7 years, regardless of condition, unless otherwise specified by the manufacturer. So in my particular case, my tires looked in perfect condition. As you can see in the photo here, there was no cracking, no scuffs, no damage. Yet 10 miles down the road, I have a blowout because my tires were quite old. And I knew that, but I decided to gamble, and it didn't exactly pay off. And the reason why you need to replace the tires in a 5 to 7 year time frame is because the rubber in those tires will naturally degrade over time. So, how quickly your tires will last, whether it's 5 years or 7, will depend on a number of factors, like how much you use your tires, whether the tires are your tires are exposed to the sun, if you store your trailer outside, how much load is on them. But generally speaking, 5 to as much as 7 years is pretty much the usable limit for most trailer tires. Passenger tires, on the other hand, don't degrade as quickly, and so you might be able to get 8 to 10 years out of them, provided that the tread and the overall condition appear to be fine. Next thing to know is that you should always carry a spare. Of course, that kind of is pretty obvious, but when you go to replace the tires on your trailer, don't forget to also replace your spare as well, even if you never use it again, because that rubber will degrade. So you need to replace that as well. And then the final thing to know about trailer tires is that the lug nut size on the wheels may be different than that on your tow vehicle. And I learned this the hard way because with my recent incident, I didn't have my universal lug nut wrench with me. So all I had was the one that came with the jack that came with my SUV, and it didn't fit. So I had to phone a friend who came out and brought his lug nut wrench, and that was how I was able to put on my spare. And so one thing that'd be a good idea to always keep in your tow vehicle is kind of a universal wrench like this one. It's got 4 different ends that have 4 different size lug nut wrench receptors. And so if you have that, you carry that with you, you can, should be able to handle the lug nuts on your trailer as well as your tow vehicle or whoever else you may have to help out. And my personal preference is to get a longer one. So this one, particular one here, is a 20-inch wrench as opposed to, say, some of the shorter 14-inch. And the reason for favoring the longer ones is those lug nuts can get kind of freeze on your wheels pretty tightly. And with a longer wrench like this, you're going to get better leverage. So I'll include a link to this in the video description. So I just talked about how 5 to 7 years is how long, a trailer tire will last. Well, how do you know the age of your tire? Well, that's pretty simple. What you do is you look for the DOT. You can see look on the sidewall, you see this DOT up here, and you look for this code over here. The first 2 numbers signify the week of manufacture. The last 2 numbers designate the year. So in my particular case, the code is 5112, which means the tire was manufactured late December of 2012. In other words, it was a very old tire, a little over 12 years old. Definitely time to replace. Okay, so let's assume you need to replace your tires. How do you find the right tire for your particular situation? Well, let me start by saying what you don't do. You don't just take the tires that you have on there currently and just go shop for the same specs, because it's possible that you had the wrong tire on there to begin with. Instead, you should look for the placard that's on the side of your trailer frame, just like the one you're seeing here. This is actually from my boat trailer. So look for that placard, and that'll give you all the information that you need. Let me just break that down for you. The first thing to note is this. So here's front, rear, spare. Those are all the same specs. So the first thing is the ST. Now that stands for special trailer, which we just talked about. The next item, 205, represents the tread width. So in my case, it's 205 millimeters. Yours may be a little bit different than that. The third item, the 75%, represents the aspect ratio. So that says the percentage of the tread. So this gets to the height of the sidewall, and it's represented as a percentage of the tread width. So mine is 75% of the tread width. So 75% of 205 means that my sidewall height is 154 millimeters. The next item, R, represents radial construction. So this is about how the tire is constructed, and radial construction means that the cords go kind of perpendicular to the tread direction. In other words, it goes across the width of the tire, whereas a bias ply tire will have the cords running diagonally. A radial tire is thought to be of higher quality than, say, a bias ply. The next item is the rim size, 14 in my case, and interestingly, this is in inches, whereas the tread width is in millimeters. I don't understand that, but that's the way it is. And then the last item is the load range. C represents the load range, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But that is an indicator of the caliber of tire required to carry the maximum load that trailer is designed for when the tires are inflated to 50 psi. And then related to that is the weight that your trailer can accommodate. So in my case, it's 4,900 pounds. The trailer, the frame, the axles, the componentry can handle an additional, can handle 4,900 pounds of load. And so these load range C tires inflated at 50 psi is sufficient to handle this 4,900 pounds plus the weight of the trailer. So that's how those are all interrelated. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit more about load ranges, which I just mentioned. This is a grouping or categorization used for trailer and light truck tires. You don't really see it with passenger tires, although they may have something called a load index instead, which is pretty much does the same thing. But it's a categorization, and it's used as an easy way to determine the what size tires you need to handle the load. And when I say size here, I mean the strength of the tire to carry the weight that you're hauling. That trailer is designed to carry. And the two most popular load range categories for, say, boat trailers are load range C and load range D. Load range C is for mid-sized trailers and is equivalent to a 6-ply rating, which was an old school way of designating how much load a tire can carry. The more plies, the heavier the load. But to get a little bit more specific, load range C tires can generally hold somewhere between about 1,400 pounds to 1,800 pounds per tire when inflated at 50 psi. Now, the actual load will vary depending on the size of the tire and the manufacturer, but that gives you a rough idea. Whereas load range D tires are for heavier trailers or trucks, equivalent to a 8-ply rating, and can handle loads of 1,800 to 2,500 pounds per tire at 65 to 80 psi. But again, these load ranges kind of are broad categories. If you want a more specific measure of what the tires can handle, you look at the max load rating, which is also embossed on the side of your tire. So here's my tire here. You can see max load single, 1,760 pounds at 50 psi. And it also lists max load dual, 1,570 at 50 psi. What this means is it's not talking about a tandem axle trailer. Instead, this is talking about whether you have two tires, attached together on the same axle, like you might see like a fifth wheel trailer. You don't see that very often for boats, so that really doesn't pertain. But this is the maximum load that each tire can accommodate. And this max load rating scales with pressure. So for example, in this case, my tire can handle each tire can handle 1,760 pounds when fully inflated to 50 psi. But let's say that tire is only inflated to 40 psi, which is 80% of the maximum. Well, to find the actual load range that is capable of at that inflation, you take 1,760 times 80% equals 1,408 per tire. And I have 4 tires on my boat trailer, so that comes out to, I can handle a maximum load of 5,632 pounds, versus if your tires were fully inflated, it could handle 7,000 pounds. So that's just one of the reasons why you should keep your tires at the full PSI level. So now let's talk about inflation. This is really important because underinflation is one of the most common reasons for tire failure. And that is because an underinflated tire will wear more quickly, and it'll also run hotter. It'll generate additional heat when pulling it down the highway. And when it gets to a certain point, that tire might start to come undone, start to come apart. So how much should you inflate your tires? Well, in the vast majority of cases, you should inflate your tires to the level listed on the placard that I showed you a moment ago, not the tire sidewall. Let me explain a little bit further. The placard indicates the amount of pressure needed to carry the load. So your tires really don't carry the weight. It's the pressure in the tires that do. And so what's listed on your placard says this is the amount of pressure required to carry the maximum load that your trailer is designed to carry. The sidewall max PSI, on the other hand, represents the maximum pressure that the tire can contain or hold. Okay, so you should never inflate your tires more than that max PSI rating. But in some cases, there could be an inconsistency between what the placard says for the PSI and what you have on your sidewall in terms of max PSI. So what do you do in those situations? Well, let's go through a couple scenarios. First one is, let's assume that the placard PSI is less than the tire sidewall psi. So this could happen if you buy a higher grade tire than what's really required to carry your particular load. And this is actually the scenario I have with my truck. I just put new tires on my truck, and the placard says 35 psi, but my tires are rated at 50 psi. So what should you do in that case? You should inflate to the placard psi. In my case, 35 pounds. But now what about the other scenario? Let's say that on the placard PSI is greater than that on the tire sidewall PSI, the maximum PSI. This could happen for a couple of reasons. One is you may have the wrong tire on there, in which case it's probably not safe to use those tires. That's the first scenario. The second scenario is you intentionally put a lesser grade of tire on there, because let's say you bought a trailer, maybe it's a flatbed trailer, and it's designed to haul 10,000 pounds. But you don't intend to haul more than 5,000 pounds. Well, in that case, you could probably get away with a lesser caliber of tire because you're not planning on carrying that 10,000 pounds. So in that situation, you should inflate to the sidewall PSI, because you should never exceed the max PSI listed on the tire, because it would not be safe. The tire is not designed to handle more than that level of pressure. But again, this would be a very rare instance for a boat trailer, because if the trailer was designed for your particular boat, then the weight is going to be, it's going to be pretty well known. And so you shouldn't have a big difference between the weight you're carrying versus the weight it's designed for. Now, replacing the tires on your trailer is not insignificant. It's a fair amount of money. It's a bit of a hassle. So what can you do to prolong the life of your trailer tires? Well, let me give you a few tips. One is to keep them inflated to the PSI level listed on the trailer placard, which we just talked about. Secondly, avoid harsh products to clean or shine your tires. Now, I know a lot of people like to use things like Armor All, but products like Armor All that are petroleum based or are silicone based can actually dry out your rubber, causing the sidewalls to crack and age more quickly. And so you shouldn't really use those things. So instead, some safe alternatives to use are Chemical Guys VRP, Turtle Wax T18, or Dawn dish soap. And I'll leave a link to each of these in the video description. And then also, if you store your trailer outdoors, you should consider getting tire covers. This is because the UV rays from the sun can quickly age your tires. For example, I'm down here in Texas, and the sun is pretty intense where I'm at. And so that will degrade your tires more rapidly if left exposed. So you may be wondering, is it worthwhile to invest in tire covers? So let me show you a quick break-even analysis that I did. Let's just assume that tires cost about $100 a piece and that you're going to be buying 4. In reality, you should really buy 5 because you should replace your spare, but for make matters simple, let's just assume 4. And the average life of tires is, let's say, 6 years. And tire covers like the ones I'm showing you in this picture cost $40 for a set of 4. So we've invested $400 in tires. We can get 6 years out of them. So that comes down to $67 per year. So if you take the cost for the tire covers, $40 over that $67 per year, that suggests that the tire covers need to extend your trailer tire life by 0.6 years or 7 months in order to break even, which I think is actually very doable. And when you go to get your next set of tires after that, you'll already have the tire covers, so you'll be money ahead. So tire covers would be a good investment if you are storing your trailer outside and it's exposed to the elements and UV rays in particular. So just to quickly recap, as I mentioned, trailer tires are different than passenger car tires or light truck tires and should be replaced every 5 to 7 years, regardless of condition, because the fact that the rubber in those tires will naturally degrade. And here I'm talking about tires designated as ST tires. And that 5 to 7 years is based on when that tire was manufactured, not when they were purchased. Besides getting the right size tire, be sure to get one that is sufficient to handle the load that you plan on hauling, meaning the total weight of the boat, motor, trailer. So make sure you're getting tires that can handle that. And that's where we talked about things like load range and max load ratings. Third, you should inflate your tires in most cases to the level listed on the trailer placard. And under no circumstances should you inflate the tires beyond the max PSI listed on the sidewall of the tire, as that would not be safe. Fourth, be sure to carry the proper lug nut wrench, because the lug nuts on your trailer wheels may be different in size than the ones used on your tow vehicle. So using kind of a universal lug nut wrench would be a good thing to carry along with you in your tow vehicle. And then finally, avoid the use of harsh products such as Armor All to clean and shine your tires, because those things can dry out the rubber, cause them to crack and age prematurely. And if you store your trailer outside, consider using tire covers to extend the life of your tires.
Okay, so there's one more topic regarding trailer tires that I save for the very end because it's a little bit controversial, and that is whether you should only use ST tires or whether it's okay to use passenger tires on your trailer. Now, if you do a quick Google search on this, the conventional wisdom is that you should only use ST tires. After all, they're designed for trailers. They are designed to carry the heavy loads of a boat or a trailer equipment. And so ST tires is what most people would recommend you go with. But then I came across a video from someone I know and respect by the name of Rick Pierce, who's the president of Basscat Boats. Basscat is a high quality boat. They've been making boats and trailers for several decades. And Rick explained why they often use passenger tires on their trailers. So that got me to digging into it a little bit further. And one of the things that I found out is that it appears that as long as the passenger tire has the load range or load capacity that can handle your boat, handle the weight of your trailer, then that should be fine. So why would you consider putting on a passenger tire as opposed to a ST tire? Well, there are a few good reasons. One is a passenger tire may be developed to a higher standard, maybe a higher quality tire because of the fact that they're on passenger vehicles. There's a lot of safety concerns. It's also very competitive. So those may be a little higher caliber tire. Secondly, a passenger tire will likely last longer, and that's because the rubber will not degrade as fast as the rubber in an ST tire. So in an ST tire, you may get 5 to 7 years before you have to replace it. Well, with a passenger tire, you may get 8 to 10 years, provided that the tread wear is fine, there's no damage, no cracking, that kind of thing. And the final reason is that a passenger tire actually may be less expensive. And that's simply because they just do so much more volume and it's very competitive in that market. So 3 compelling reasons why a passenger tire is worth considering. Now, I'm not telling you which way to go, whether to go with a passenger tire or a ST tire, but I wanted to bring up another factor for you to consider, and you should do your own homework and decide for yourself. If you have a quality or reputable tire retailer, when you're ready to buy tires, I would contact them and ask for his or her advice on this matter. Well, buying the right tires for your trailer is critical for the safety of your family and to protect your investment. And if you follow the tips in today's video, that should keep you on the right track. If you enjoyed today's video and you found it helpful, do me a big favor and click on that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel to get my latest tips and advice to help you purchase, equip, and maintain your boat. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the water.